Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 320, where Christine has said that she's mad at me and Eva. And I'm about to find out why with everybody else, because apparently the only way that confrontation happens is when Christine addresses it publicly. So
I need an audience.
What's the situation?
First let me figure out how to turn up the volume here because I can't hear you.
So you can
well.
yell?
No,
God.
I just can't hear you well for some reason. It's really quiet.
Oh, is it on me?
It's probably not you.
I tested my audio.
I'm sure it's not you. For once, it's probably not your fault.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay, well, we'll just wing it.
Well, no, you can fix it. We can just edit it. We can just edit this part out.
It's fine. I can hear you.
Okay.
Here's the thing.
What?
Okay, so in my dream last night.
Oh, fuck. What, Christine? Because I was about to say I had a great dream about you, but I guess we're officially balanced out now.
You were mean to me in my dream last night.
Well, you probably deserved it. I don't know what to tell you. It's probably because you knew you would you'd pull some bullshit like this in the real world, and so dream you'd like tried to get some, I don't know. Maybe I was trying to get some revenge early on. I don't know.
In my dream, we went to a show.
Mm-hmm.
A live show, and you and Eva decided to tell me right before the show that you had created a whole new plot point and a new video for the show. And
wow, you would I hope I died in that world. I hope you murdered me.
I tried. And you were like, well, too late now. And I was like, well, what is it? Can I see it? And you're like, no, it's fine. And you wouldn't tell me. And I was like so distraught. And then you turned to me. And to be fair, this happened in a TV show I watched last night, which is why I think you said it in my dream. But you turned to me and you're like, honestly, I don't care if you're upset. And I was like, oh my God. And so then I cried. And then I was like, I have to go back to the green room because I accidentally wore Blaze's sweatpants to the show.
Obviously.
Yeah, it's not a good look. So I went
One
back.
time I went to work and forgot shoes. So, we all do it.
Okay, one time you went to the airport and forgot shoes because I took them.
I don't know if I forgot. It just certainly happened that way.
And so I tried to go in the green room, and the security guy grabbed my arm so hard it left a bruise, and he was like, you're not allowed back there. And I was like, why? And they were like, because Em and Eva are back there. And I was like, wow, I'm getting really shunned out of this group. But
I feel
then,
okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so far, if I were a dream interpreter, I think you just miss us and you are
I feel left out.
I think you're feeling some FOMO when Eva and I hang out.
I think so too. And then poor Eva got all upset. And I was like, don't be mad at yourself. It's Em's fault.
That is probably how it would have been handled. So, unsurprising all around. I'm wondering where this becomes a dream versus reality.
Okay, so then, get this.
Mm-hmm.
I suddenly became lucid in the dream.
Oh, so, and then you decided to keep being mad? You're such an asshole. Okay.
Because then I was like, this will be interesting. Because remember last time when I became lucid in a dream and asked you, like, what's your message for yourself? You were like, I don't know. And I was like, well, that's not helpful. So today I changed up the wording.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I know what'll get Em to respond.
What?
So I said, Em, if you could send future Em a message, what would it be?
Oh, fuck yeah.
And you were like, ooh.
me and all worlds, we all tingled at the same time, knowing we were going to hear this.
And guess what your message was to future you?
What, the middle finger? What?
No, but that's my message to you.
What?
Your message was, okay, tell future Em to brush your teeth and eat a banana.
I literally ate a banana today.
No, you didn't.
That was my breakfast before I started.
Okay, well,
that's
apparently you heard.
That's why it took me longer to get on, because I was in a banana experience. And
well, apparently I already knew that.
Wow. And by the way, I know that sounds like That was the first time I've had a banana in like months. Like, just so we're clear. Like, it's
Yeah,
not
I
like
don't know where it came from. It was like, eat a banana. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll tell Em to eat a banana. But I guess you already did.
interesting. I'm a little upset that you forgot to ask where the note is.
So I did, but like, or I didn't ask because I was like, you know what? We were first of all in a different city, like at a
Mhm.
show. So I don't know where we were. So I couldn't be like, oh, Em, where's the note in your apartment? Because we were
Mm.
on stage.
Mhm.
And so I was like, this is not the time. But the last time I went to your apartment and said, where's the note? You were like, what note? And I was like, don't play these games with me, Em.
Oh, well, then Dream Me is fucking with you because there's a note for sure.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to find it next time. I'm going to
I th-
say,
I think you shouldn't rely on me. I think you should just like
yeah,
float
why do I feel
here.
like I need to ask you? Because you, in my brain, are just a projection of how I think you would respond. So it's not like you're going to tell me. I don't know. So, and then I flew out the window because I was like, fuck this. And I told, I told you and Eva to do the show by yourselves. And then I flew out. But at this point, I knew it was a dream. So I was like, this is kind of funny. So I was like, go do the show by yourself. Bye. And I left. And you were like, wait. And I was like, don't worry, it's not real. And I flew out the window and then I surfed on the ocean like a
Wow.
Pokemon. Yeah, it was cool.
How did you wake up and feel not exhausted from that? That
I was
sounds like a
just
lot of work.
so mad at you.
Oh, you're just like fueled by rage. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. But the saddest part is I went up to Eva after I asked you for your future message and I said, Eva, what do you want to tell your future self? And she went, I don't want to tell her anything. And I went, why? I was like, why? And she goes, because I'm still so upset with myself for like leaving you out of the scene or whatever that we filmed. And I was like, Eva, first of all, this is my subconscious creating you saying that, which is so fucked up. Like this is
It would be the most Eva thing where her alternate realms, like her in other worlds, is feels guilty about
still
something you
feels
came up with.
bad. And then I was like, don't feel sad. And I was like, it's not your fault. And then I was like, it's Em's fault, even though it wasn't really. But and so I said, don't feel bad. And then she was like, well, I have work to do, and then went away. So sorry, Eva. Once again, this is remember last time when I asked Eva for a message, she went, oh, a message. Interesting.
Mhm.
What would I say? And I was like, well, I'm awake. I woke up because I didn't, you got to be speedier.
Yeah, you gotta be quick with it. You gotta have an answer.
Yeah, but you said brush your teeth and eat a banana. And I was like, okay.
Next time, if you have the wherewithal, can you ask future me what sandwich I should eat that day? And then from beyond, I'll make the sandwich of your dreams.
Now that.
But it won't if fuck me if I say like anchovies or
Anchovies.
something. Absolutely not.
I don't think even my subconscious could formulate those words coming out of your mouth, like in my wildest dreams. I really don't.
You would envision me going, bleh.
Yeah, I would be like thrown out of the dreamscape just for that.
Not to totally make this like just so beyond dark, but I do wonder because I don't know the concept. I actually don't know if it's enough information to even do an episode on. I don't know. It's actually not really paranormally, so it wouldn't fit anyway. But there's there was some piece of like really like dark art, like a what do you say? What do you call it? Like a showcase or something, and there was this interactive art piece where this guy had a model, or maybe she was the model, maybe the artist was the model, and she just stood there and she left a bunch of like really just a bunch of random items on a table next to her, standing in the middle of the room, and the whole art was for other people to do whatever they wanted to her with the items on the table.
She was the artist.
She was the artist.
Yeah.
And it ended up becoming like, this
horrific.
I mean, it was horrible. Like people like there was like blood by
it
the
got
end.
like dangerous.
It got really dangerous. Like people were like holding knives up to her. Like it was really fucking crazy. But it was like almost a psychological experiment of like if someone gave you the freedom to do whatever you wanted
with
in
no
that moment,
repercussions. Yeah.
with no repercussions, what would you do? And so it's interesting that in your dream, when you're with me and Eva, all you can think to do is like be mad,
pick a fight.
Like you could have like pushed me into like a pool full of chocolate pudding, but you were just like, I'm gonna have a fucking problem instead.
To be fair, I was really. To be fair, once I turned lucid, I was like, Oh, okay. None of this is real. So then I had more fun. But before that, it was a normal dream where I was just like crying and like sad. Oh, and then I got stuck on the stage in Blaze's sweatpants. And
Mm-hmm. I wonder what
then
that means.
I looked out at the audience and it was like empty. So we know what that means. I mean, this is just all our biggest fears come to light. And then I got locked out of the green room. So, it's all, very clearly a normal dream. And then when I became lucid, the first thing I did was there was this like bald man. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in a dream. And he goes, what? And I said, I'm in a dream. And he's like, I'm sorry, can I help you?
Oh
And I,
shit.
and I kissed the top of his head and I said, how about that? And he was like, okay, and he walked away. And I was like, I gotta go find Em and see what a future message is.
How about them apples is just
How about
crazy.
that? He was not into it.
Well, that freaks me out because there's nothing eerier than when people in the dream, you fucking in theory conjured them and they're
isn't it
confused
creepy?
by you.
That's why A, I love the movie Inception, and B, lucid dreaming is the coolest thing because you can see like people you've never seen before, just strangers, and like do whatever you want and see how they react. And usually in my world, my dreams, they react like, what is the matter with you? And I'm like, this is
But
a
that
dream.
hurts my feelings. It's like I came up with you and you're still judging me? Like,
I
hang
know,
on a
but
second.
it's kind of freeing because you're like, I can literally just like pour a bottle of water on your head and like it won't have any real world consequences, but I do get to see how you would react.
You know, if we learned anything about ourselves today, it's that we both know how to hurt our own feelings even while unconscious.
In an unconscious state. How sad.
Anyway, I was going to say earlier that I had a dream that
yeah.
you got. Oh, hang on. It's one of those things where I need to remember it immediately or it's never going to stick.
Uh-oh.
So we were at a show too. Wow, that says a lot about us. And we were at our show, and for some reason, instead of a green room, this is like beyond a nightmare. Instead of a green room, they couldn't find us a green room, and so we had to sit in the audience and wait for our own fucking show. And we were just gonna like stand up and like sidestep out of the chairs and then like go up on stage.
Okay, that sounds kind of like my dream because when I wasn't allowed in the green room, I just stand amongst the crowd. And I was like, oh God, this is so awkward. And they were like, you can stand in this alley instead of a green room.
Well, so then I don't remember what happened, but you got like offered to be like on a true crime panel or something. And I kept saying, we were doing the thing where before a show, we just kept looking at our phone and like watching how many more minutes until we have to go on. And I was like, I don't even want to do this. I just want to like go back to the hotel and like and hang out with you and like help you work on your panel thing. But every minute it like dragged because I kept hearing, because we were in the audience, we kept hearing people saying like only 4 more minutes, and then the panic would set in, but the minute lasted like what felt like a year. And then all of a sudden you hear, only 3 more minutes.
Oh no.
So then I said to you, because I overheard other people saying it, I went, oh my God, only 3 more minutes. And everyone, because I said it, I guess a bunch of people got excited that like I was confirming only 3 more minutes left for the show. So people were getting really excited. And all of a sudden I just shouted, never mind. And everyone at the same time went like synchronized, completely silent. Like they sat down in their chairs and stopped clapping and just like looked away as if they couldn't see me.
Ew.
It was so creepy, but also in my brain at the time I was like, wow, we have such a supportive audience where like they could tell I was nervous and then they just went, we see nothing. And
well, that's nice. I feel like your dream had a better relationships and better, everybody seemed healthier psychologically speaking.
Our entire audience like harmonized on appreciating and respecting a boundary.
That's
which
pretty
was nice.
beautiful. Yeah.
But we still had to perform. Anyway,
that sucks.
Welcome to the guy on YouTube who time codes when we start talking. Are you having a good time just like enduring this currently?
At least this intro is about like something, like dreams, and I mean, it's at least
it's dreamy.
It's not just talking about like what we ate for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
It's at least slightly, I would hope slightly more interesting than the usual intro. I don't know.
We started hot with you being mad.
I was mad.
And then it very quickly devolved into like, oh, okay. Like, no, we're not mad. It's just kidding.
Oh yeah, it was all in my own brain. So Yeah, what a shock. Anyway,
Anyway, happy 320, not 420, but in 100 episodes I'll catch you with that one.
hell
That'll
yeah.
be a fun. We have to come up with a topic for 420.
Okay.
What to do? Should we just start going? I don't know. Okay.
I'm
Well,
ready.
in case anyone was wondering, the reasons why we drink is because
I've squashed my beef with you.
That's why. That's why. Until tonight when I decide to retaliate, I guess, and duke it out with you in the dream world.
I feel so bad when I have dreams like that because I wake up like, God, what is wrong with me? Like my subconscious just creates enemies out of people in my sleep. Like I victimize myself in my dreams. It's so embarrassing. Like
You're just always so ready to be on the defense.
like play like
that you're
woe
like,
is me. Yeah, it's like, what is the matter with me? Get a grip.
Get a grip.
Get
Keep
a
it together.
grip.
KIT. Keep it together.
KIT.
Hang on, I'm readjusting. I have if the world could see what is happening at this desk right now,
I can't
you'd be
even
disgusted
see.
with me. Well, exactly, because the camera's perfectly placed, but let's just say like exactly right here is the only clean part of this desk, and it's just like I'm surrounded at the moment. So
Oh, sounds
anyway,
normal to me.
it's just chaos over here. Okay. Do you know what today's topic is? You oughta. You better know. Girl, we've been talking about it for like 3 weeks now.
I
2 weeks.
forget.
Crossroads,
Oh wait, it's still Crossroads?
which led into me doing a spin-off last week,
Hecate.
and the other spin-off, which you requested. I don't know if you fully...
Oh! Is it liminal spaces? No.
How to give you a clue.
What? I know I requested it already.
They're technically liminal spaces. They're lines.
Ley lines.
Okay.
I knew it started with an L, and it was mostly because you were making an L with your hand. So I
was
felt
trying.
like I was cheating. But oh my God, I'm so excited. Okay,
Thank
I'm
you for
ready.
picking it up as I was like about to drop all faith. I
Yeah,
was like, I'm just gonna say it.
You looked pretty sad, and I'm sorry, and I do regret my actions.
Well, I'll see you in my dreams tonight. We'll figure it out.
We'll duke it out.
We'll talk it through.
Hey, if anybody else is coming to the show in our dreams tonight, you can maybe see us duke it out on stage. It'll be dramatic.
We could see you respecting our boundaries, please.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe like helping us find a green room so we don't have to sit in the audience and
That would be
like,
nice.
ruin the reveal.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, we're talking about Ley Lines today, Christine. Which we have touched on in previous episodes, but I don't think we've done a full deep dive. Now
No.
would be a bad time to check our episode guide and find out we have. So we're
let's
going to move
not.
along as if.
To be
that's not
fair,
the
like
case.
I really don't know anything about them, so I imagine if you had done an episode on it, I would have at least retained something because I think it's such an
Right?
interesting concept. So I don't think we've done it.
I don't think we've done it either. I think we've covered a part of it, which I am going to rehash, but that's it. Okay. So the definition. Would you like to give the definition, or would you like me to give a definition?
I don't
of Ley
really
Lines?
know it.
Oh, I think I give you more credit than maybe at least in this topic you deserve.
No, it's like I think I say the word a lot because my family.
Because Zach Bagans says it a lot.
Because my family has used dowsing rods for like generations, and so I know that that's oftentimes what they're used for. But I've never used them for that, so I don't really know beyond that. That's what they're used for. Like that's the extent of my understanding.
Well, today we'll get a definition from
An
me.
energetic plane. I don't know. I'm just making shit up.
I mean, you're not off. So they're lines around the world. They could look like a latitude longitude situation, but they're lines all over the world that when they intersect, they're lines of energy in general, but when they intersect, that is where they have concentrated energy sitting at these particular spots on the line. And a lot of times the thing that's super creepy about these ley lines is the concentrated pockets of energy where these lines intersect often end up being on a map. You'll realize that those spots are also the locations of sacred landmarks. So if you look at a ley line, all of a sudden, the Bermuda Triangle is one of the intersections of two ley lines,
Wow.
or a lot of haunted places happen to be intersections of ley
Mm-hmm.
lines. And so they're thought to be incredibly more charged because of that. And now we're talking about it. So examples of this are the Great Pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, Sedona, Arizona, the vortexes out there, the megaliths in Montana, the Great Wall of China, Bermuda Triangle. Pretty much, if you can think of a spiritual landmark or a historic landmark, or sometimes just ancient ruins in general, they all end up being intersections on a ley line,
That is so cool.
and nobody knows why.
Hmm.
Some areas where these lines intersect are also said to perfectly align with star constellations, which I didn't know. But I think
Oh.
that's pretty bananas. And theoretically, these lines connect spiritual locations and their intense energies, which amplify them into vortexes. So, vortexes or vortices? What am I thinking of?
Vortices?
Isn't that a math term? Whatever. Vortexes.
You're getting into dangerous territory here, friend. Math term, I don't know.
Vertices?
Oh,
Vortice?
yeah. A
Okay.
vertice. Okay.
Well, we're not going to talk about that today.
Vortexes. Let's just say that.
Vortexes. Vorti? I don't know. Okay. So these places are often said to be heavily active with spirits because of their alleged high energy, and the ley lines and intersections have also allegedly been used for spiritual, ritual, and or religious purposes. So they just seem to always have. They seem throughout history to have been important at some point.
Mm.
It's thought that people, this is another weird one, is that some people say, well, how could we have known to build all these landmarks on these exact intersecting lines? And one theory is that these people, us, our ancestors, are subconsciously in tune with these spaces and where we feel compelled to certain areas, which is why we would build spots
Whoa.
there. The ley lines even predate the Druids. They go by many names. In South America, they're called spirit lines. In Australia, the Aboriginals call it dream lines, and in China, they're called dragon lines.
Whoa.
Uh,
All of those are really fun and creative.
I'm going to talk about the dragon lines real quick. I'm not going to go in depth. I was going to do a whole little blurb about it because it sounded super cool, but we quickly derail. So this was the best I could offer. Is that fun fact? In China, people believe that these ley lines are the paths that dragons once took to travel across the world.
That's beautiful.
And here is a quote. It's long, but it's worth it. When this path of the dragon runs in straight lines for any distance, because ley lines are in theory straight lines with minimal obstacles. When this path of the dragon runs in straight lines for any distance, the energy that builds up, or like the momentum of it, can become a danger to all living things. So by erecting a barrier, such as a stone circle, a burial mound, or a building on such a line, the dangerous energy is diffused into the barrier. In order to break up these straight lines of energy, the Chinese buildings were built with eaves and roofs of varying heights along a street. Direction men were given the duty of mapping out the lines of the dragon's path and decided in what order things should be placed within houses and landscaping to keep the good influences of the energy and dissipate the bad. Today, this practice is referred to as feng shui. And the influence of these dragon lines was considered so serious that any landscape that was found to be inharmonious with the path of the dragon was respectfully altered.
That's incredible. I think that's
I had
so
no
powerful.
idea. I had no idea that was feng shui.
I
was reading that, and then I got to, this is referred to as feng shui, and I went, what? I was
Whoa.
like, hang on.
Yeah, it took me a second, but I've always been fascinated by feng shui, and I'm a big believer in it. I don't know if you saw that I've altered the apartment.
Yes.
Because I was like, the feng shui in here is off. And
Understood.
I don't know. I feel naturally like I understand the flow of energy. And I follow some TikTokers who, like this one man from China who talks about feng shui and energy flow. And every time he does, I'm like, yes, I get it. I could plan out his little, like I can see what he I don't know. I get it. For some reason, it just clicks in my mind. So I've just always been really fascinated by that.
Well, that was that's all I'm going to say about feng shui, because otherwise there were a lot of history
I
about.
bet.
So I'm going to skip it today, but I needed to say that part at least because it was
That is
just so
cool.
So these lines have been around and they're multicultural. A lot of people have different beliefs for them, but they are important. So, or they're considered important in a lot of places. This is another fun fact. In the UK, the most famous ley line is called the St. Michael's line. And it is first mentioned in a book in 1969. But this teeters into sacred geometry, which you just heard me try to figure out math. I'm not going to get into that.
We don't even know what a rhombus is.
Exactly. And I got a D in real geometry, so I don't know if I should be teaching sacred geometry. But the St. Michael's line, it's 350 miles long, and it's called the St. Michael's line because it runs through and intersects so many sites that are weirdly dedicated to St. Michael.
Bizarre.
It's very odd. Also, there's a St. Mary's line, which weirdly intertwines with St. Michael's line. And even the St. Michael's line, it happens to all lead towards and face towards the sunrise. If you look the, I don't know how to just with the solstices and stuff. I don't know how they do it, but apparently the St. Michael's line directionally leads and always faces the sunrise that happens on May 5th. So on May 5th, the sun rises in a certain direction and the line is always pointed in that direction. And May 5th happens to be the day that people celebrate St. Michael.
Feast day. Okay.
It's very odd. And St. Mary and St. Michael are somehow intertwined. A lot of people say on the St. Michael's line, they can feel masculine energy and it's more connected to the sun or during the day. And the Mary line feels more feminine and is connected to the moon. So.
Wow.
Fun fact there. And then I don't know how else to say this. It's going to jar you for a second, but hang with me. There is a place in Yorkshire called the Swastika Stone. Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay, so this is not. This was back when swastika
I was going to say, but swastika had an original meaning before it was, bastardized.
Just completely bastardized. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's this etching in a stone in Yorkshire that I guess they say kind of looks like a swastika. It's a very here, I'll send you. I have a picture of it that I can send you. It kind of looks like that. There's other rumors that it's actually someone just drew a boomerang. Which I feel like
drew a boomerang and they're like, it's a swastika, and he's like, no, it's a boomerang.
Yeah, talk about having the worst name for a landmark. And I feel like even if someone squinted their eyes and thought boomerang, I'd be like, please name me the boomerang stone.
Please, anything but.
So this is an etching, but it's from 2,000 years ago.
Wow.
And it has stayed. It's kind of faded at this point, but it's still there. And what's weird about this stone is it's said to be, very powerful and have a lot of energy connected to it. And if you look at it on a ley line map, 20 different intersections happen over this stone. So it's considered a nexus location in ley lines.
So it's small.
It's small.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a massive thing that you see from the sky.
It sounds like a stone that when it's carved to be the shape, but it's literally someone just
in stone.
It looks like when it was wet cement, someone drew a boomerang into a
Got
rock.
it. It looks to me like one of those Nerf, like a Nerf boomerang, or like one of those in SpongeBob, like a
a flower,
like
or
a
something.
flower, or whatever it is. Those kind of seaweedy type things.
It looks like it's like kelp that's moving with the water, so it's bent and thus becomes the shape of a swastika. It's the only thing it's worth mention though, because it is from either the Bronze Age or even further back. It could be from the Iron Age. It's considered a prehistoric rock. At the time, as we were just kind of, towing with, is that swastikas did not always mean something terrible. In fact, Nazis picked it because it symbolized freedom. Disgusting. But they've obviously ruined what it can
Mhm.
mean.
Mhm.
And ancient civilizations, this symbol of at least multi-directional, that's kind of all it really was, is it pointed to the north, east, south, and west all at the same time.
Mhm.
And apparently in a lot of ancient civilizations, it usually referred to the sun. So it's interesting
Mm.
that it's on a rock and it's looking up to the sun. So we really, it's been lost to time what the actual meaning of it was. But what's interesting in ley line theory is that 20 different lines all intersect on this
That's
thing.
amazing.
And so they think it's just very, electrically charged.
Right.
Okay, now moving away from ever having to say the word swastika again. So here is the beginning of how ley lines came to be, or the theory at least. So in 1921, which ley lines are only as old as 1921, but I think was this the one of the first waves of spiritualism?
Oh,
The 1880s?
yeah.
Maybe it was the end of the first wave.
But I think this is the second one because World War II or World War One, I'm sorry, had just slowed. Like World War One.
Yes, you're right. So it was the end of the second wave.
Right. Yes, I believe so.
So this is in the UK in 1921, and a man named Alfred Watkins. He is an amateur archaeologist, which I love.
Me too, by the way.
I love that 100 years later, archaeologists are still making sure we know that he's not one of them.
He's right.
He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So he was standing on a hilltop. I think they also said he might have been on a horse at one point, but he ended up on a hilltop
Okay.
with or without the horse. And when he was looking out over the landscape, he noticed that he could see several historical sites in front of him, and they all happened to line up perfectly with each other.
Oh, okay.
And the lines seemed to intersect. If he were to draw them in his head, they seemed to intersect at specific landmarks. And his first draft of this theory, he called the intersecting spots terminal points.
Okay.
And he was like, it's interesting that there's a bunch of terminal points and all these paths I'm seeing all intersect at different landmarks around me. So he bought an ordnance survey map, which, fun fact, ordnance survey maps were like trying to become like a I don't know how else to say it, except they were trying to market themselves to people that weren't even surveyors. They were just like, we want everyone to have an ordnance survey map. And so they were like in this weird phase of actually trying to
like
have the common man buy them for fun.
Disseminate them to the public. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they like printed too many. I don't totally know.
They actually ordered too many from Kinko's. They were like, we gotta get rid of these.
Sorry, I meant they drew too many. Am I bad?
Yeah.
But no, I wonder, there wasn't a lot going on to do. So
we
maybe
didn't have
they were
Google
like
Maps back then. Maybe they were like, here, this is your map of the county. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, it happened to fall. So then I saw like one website, which I did not keep in my research, but I think someone was trying to like throw a conspiracy theory twist in this of like, this is all the ordnance surveyors like role. Like they were trying to get us out there. Like they were trying to make it sound like the only reason we have ley lines is because some like land surveyor decided that
it was
there
like a
needed
marketing
to be
ploy to like get people to buy these fucking maps. Okay.
Yeah, like Halloween was just created by the candy corporations, and ley lines were just created by the land purveyor. So anyway, I thought that was funny, but anyway, so he notices all these lines when he's on this hilltop. He goes back and buys an ordnance survey map, which I guess is just like so available these days.
Yeah, they're just like on clearance probably at this point.
It's like it's next to the gum at the grocery. Like it's
just check out.
Just pick one up on your way out.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks at the land again that he was at to make sure that he wasn't, losing it. And he tracks all the landmarks and he draws a line from landmark to landmark. And he goes, holy shit, there are all these straight paths. And these sites, which he was calling
terminal
points, he's now officially called them ley markers. That's his new word for them.
Snazzy.
And he realized that not only were some of these ley markers ancient ruins, but some of them were also like naturally made. So it was interesting to him that there were naturally made and man-made sites that were all still intersecting.
That is interesting.
So some of the natural sites were like mounds, riverbanks, hilltops. But there were also churches and forts, and so it was just odd that they were all still coming together.
Yeah.
So he has a few books. He has early British trackways. He has the Ley Hunter's Manual to help people find them themselves. But his most famous one was his first book called The Old Straight Track. And he calls, in this book, he calls the straight lines lays for the first time.
Okay.
I guess because they are connected to ley markers. So the name Ley, which I thought this was like such a fun fact, and if anyone is about to go like do spooky trivia, here is something you might need to know. He called them lays because he realized all of the sites that were connected were going through different towns that all ended in Ley.
What?
Like there was like Sudley and Dudley. I'm just coming up with fucking things done with Ley. But like that was the only reason, is that they all happened to end with Ley. And he was like, oh, okay, so lays.
What?
Isn't that funky?
That's wild.
And apparently ley also means a clearing in the woods.
Okay. That would have made a little more sense to me, but that very wild fun fact.
It is, I mean, to be fair, like it doesn't mean every site
right
ends in Ley or the town ends in Ley, but he noticed an abnormal amount. But then again, like you're in the fucking UK, I feel like everything ends with either ley or shire. So
yeah, true.
Anyway, so he called them lays, which also mean a clearing in the woods, which eerily also makes sense because he's noticing all these clearings in the woods that shouldn't be there, or shouldn't be adding up like this. So the original paths he lined up could be seen as clearings from only a certain height. And so that's why nobody else had noticed these patterns before, because he just happened to be on that one hilltop and saw all these things come together.
With or without a horse.
I don't know if the horse mattered. Maybe those 6 feet didn't really do much for him.
The horse mattered.
We'll say a horse.
We know the horse matters.
I don't know. Either bring stilts next time you go to a hilltop or something, but get yourself high enough. Okay. Either in some way he was able to
Did you just
get
say
to
bring stilts. Don't bring stilts. I foresee all of our listeners tumbling down a hill attached to wooden sticks. I don't think stilts are the answer, but climb a hill. That much I can approve.
Get yourself one of those ladders that like pop out so you can stand on it without another person down there, Just get yourself to a certain height, and when you look around, apparently that's how he was able to see this pattern that nobody else had picked up on before.
Cool.
Alfred himself believed that he'd actually stumbled upon ancient routes or roads that date back to the Neolithic era.
Whoa.
And with these routes, he thinks that his ancestors would use ley markers as navigation points because originally back then, this area was just super dense with forest. It was really hard to get through. But in these certain clearings, you were able to look around and at least see from that vantage point. I mean, as you just said, Google Maps wasn't a thing. So your best way of knowing if you're going in the right direction is like, oh, is that church supposed to be to my left?
Is this Studley or Dudley that I've just stopped in?
Whose horse is that? But so it was he thinks he just stumbled upon roads that originally intersected at parts where you could go to that intersection and look around and be able to see other intersections, so you always knew where you were, and it was a navigation tool.
That is so interesting. Okay.
He did not believe that these ley lines had any cosmic energy to them. He was not the one who pushed that there was a mystical lore to this stuff. He really, as again, an amateur archaeologist, he was like, wow, I found old navigation routes. That's really cool. And that was kind of the end of it for him. So I hate to break it to you, but ley lines weren't supposed to be cosmic.
I kind of like that though, because it's like grounded more in
reality.
Yeah. What was he, an amateur an amateur
archaeologist?
Yeah. It feels like it's grounded more in like science, at the start.
Yeah, and it does follow suit with what people were doing in the Neolithic era, which is where he says these routes might have dated back to, because they were known to create riverbanks and ditches and intentionally set up navigation landmarks so that way if you got lost you knew where you were. So even though he didn't think of these as mystical lines, here's a quote. Even though he didn't, quote, a hidden network of energy lines across the earth quickly fired the imagination of the upcoming New Age movement. So all he did was kind of set the tone, and then the New Age movement hit, and everyone ran with it.
Yeah,
So
he laid the line, and then they said, let's run for it.
paved the way, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So in the 1920s and 1930s, there was a real uprising of ley line enthusiasm.
Love it.
After Alfred's book came out. And then it kind of died down again, and the real fascination hit in the 50s through the 70s.
Ooh.
So there was a writer, it's a French name, so I don't know how to say it right, but I think it's Aime, A-I-M-E, Aime.
I have no idea.
Aime Michel. And he suggested that in France, there were a lot of UFO sightings, and they all happened to, all of the sightings, if you mapped them, happened to all be concentrated on this one grid with a bunch of lines intersecting. And he considered these intersecting lines or intersecting spots on this grid where UFOs were seen. I don't know why, but he gave them their own name and called them orthotenies. Okay. I don't know. He called them orthotenies, and it was spots on a UFO flight ley line map that UFOs had been spotted, and they all weirdly made a grid.
Ooh, that's creepy.
Also, there was one UFO abductee who had heard all these theories, and he started running with it, and he said that he thought UFOs used the ley lines that we already had. Like if you looked at any map, UFOs were aware of our ley lines, and they were using them to give their ships power and to navigate their way around Earth.
Ew.
In 1961, there was a Royal Air Force pilot, or ex-Royal Air Force pilot, named Tony Wedd, and he suggested that prehistoric societies made these ley lines to communicate with UFOs. So he's now implying it's not just that UFOs and other, cosmic beings know about our ley lines, but our prehistoric ancestors knew something we don't know when it came to communicating with extraterrestrials. They were in cahoots.
Okay.
And they intentionally created these ley lines for others to communicate with us.
Got it.
Other UFOologists also thought that ley lines could be landing zones for aliens, and they were able to read that on a map better than we knew how. Another theory is one person talked to a bunch of UFO abductees and realized that all of them happened to live at ley line intersections.
No. That is upsetting.
And another theory is that these ley lines could symbolize portals that aliens used to use to visit us, and we just don't know how to unlock them ourselves.
That's probably for the best.
Probably for the best, I think.
Leave them closed.
Jumping off that, ley lines are also now being theorized to just be simply portals to other universes, not just other worlds, but to other realms, and we don't know how to access it.
I want to open it now. I changed my mind.
All of a sudden, Pandora's box got the better of you. I think.
Know it doesn't take much.
So now we're in 1969, and ley lines have been the talk of the town in the UFO world, mainly the UFO world compared to the spiritual world. So it really started in UFOologists' hands. And in 1969, this one guy named John, I think Mitchell or Michel. It'd be weird if two people with the name Michel were involved here. But he wrote a book called The View Over Atlantis, which apparently during the hippie movement, this was a huge book people were reading.
They love that shit,
Did they? I don't remember hearing about this.
You don't remember the hippies?
Yeah, not this one book.
I don't remember.
But through his book, not only were ley lines now being talked about in the UFO world, but also for people who are all into Atlantis.
Okay.
This also, through Atlantis, he also started talking about spiritual dimensions and other worlds that either we've come from or go to. And he says that maybe these ley lines are connected to that and their paths to alternate dimensions.
I love that.
Which I totally get why hippies were into that. Imagine being
Totally.
so high on like the highest you've ever been and someone telling you there are these lines that if you map it out, you can ascend to other realms. Like,
And
oh my
it's
God.
from an archaeologist.
Yeah,
And you
it's
just
from
have to
Alfred.
leave the amateur out of it because that's not relevant.
It's from Fred
It's
and his
science.
horse. So John Mitchell, he went on to try and officially map these ley lines to go with his book, I guess. And he suggested that people help him find these ley lines with dowsing rods.
Aha.
Now, before I get any further, I want to say one fun fact about Alfred, which I think is just so cute because remember, he didn't believe in any of this cosmic stuff. He just was really into looking through land, looking at maps,
He was
and
a
because
sucker for one of those what are those maps called?
ordnance survey maps.
He was a sucker for an ordnance survey map. You know, some of us are.
Well, he was such an enthusiast and he was so stoked that he discovered ancient roads that he ended up kind of coming out with his own campaign to encourage people to buy their own ordnance survey maps and to go looking for the ley lines in their area. And
Aww.
and during the first wave of like interest in this in the 1920s and 1930s, it was apparently a popular pastime for people to go out, and it encouraged people to take walks and learn
my God,
about
it's
their
like
local area.
Pokemon Go or like geocaching where it's like go outside.
He was the original Pokemon master,
That's
yes.
so cute.
But yeah, it was very precious that he was like encouraging people to learn about their local history, and he was like, where are the ancient ley lines for you? What sites did you find on your walk?
It's like a PBS Kids show where they're like, where's your ley line? Say it now.
Well, I just think it was very sweet that I only think of Alfred as like an 80-year-old man at the youngest, and I just imagine him being like,
The
go on, kids. Go on, kids. Take your map with you. And maybe this is where that one guy in a blog thought that there was a conspiracy with the Ordnance Survey map.
I'm starting to see it now.
He's like, why did he create a campaign to make people leave their house?
Maybe
But anyway,
he just had the best interests of people's heart health and I don't know.
you know what it's kind of giving? Randonautica.
There we go. I love that, Em.
It's kind of just, walk around, find what you find. It might be spooky. Might not. Might just be historical and fun.
I completely forgot about Randonautica.
Because that was something that all of us are going to just like scream in the middle of the night one day when we have flashbacks about COVID, I think. It was like...
Oh, it was right in the midst, wasn't it?
It was a genius. Whoever came up with Randonautica, I think they like had it as an app or something for a lot longer, but it really blew up during COVID.
Yeah.
What a genius way to get people to like leave their house while socially
Do
distancing.
activities, yeah.
Anyway, he's the Alfred of our time. I don't know where he is, but anyway, so Alfred was like, go on, kids, go out and explore. And it became like this thing that people did in the 1920s and 1930s. But now we've got this John Mitchell fella in 1969. He wrote this book about Atlantis. He's talking about spiritual dimensions. And now he is also encouraging people to go find ley lines, except, as I just said, his tactic was with dowsing rods.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I feel like that is more the campaign you would have ran with. You would have been like, I'm now absolutely going outside for the first time.
For the first time in ever, probably. Yeah. You've done it.
So his book and this venture of finding ley lines with dowsing rods, this led to, this was kind of the beginnings of, I guess, really running with the concept that ley lines are made out of energy.
Okay,
Because
I was going to ask.
Because I think in UFO world, people just saw that these lines were weird and invisible to a map unless you drew them yourself, and that was mysterious enough. But once he brought dowsing rods into this, and like you can find them through energy,
Right.
then all of a sudden that was... So 1969 is the year where ley lines became energetically charged.
Interesting. Or where people determined that.
It's when it became part of the lore.
Okay, got it.
So... Once he basically set the scene of like, hey, ley line equals, very charged energy areas. now the supernatural worlds in terms of like the paranormal. Everyone in the paranormal world is involved. They're writing books, they're going to seminars, they're doing the things, they're buying the dowsing rods. And now we've got ley lines involved in dowsing, to UFO crop circle studies, to very quickly it led into like numerology and spiritual activity and thus witchcraft. And it really all exploded after that. Especially because right at 1969, now we're in the 70s where people are, it's right before Satanic Panic. So a bunch of people are,
exploring
exploring.
Exploring.
So many ancient sites on ley lines happen to also be crossroads, as I said 2 whole episodes ago. And as I mentioned, now 3 episodes in a row, a lot of crossroads happen to be burial sites for, quote, restless spirits. And these spots quickly became known as haunted locations because a lot of these crossroads intersected on ley lines. So on top of them being haunted because of all the other spiritual stuff I've been saying for 2 weeks about crossroads, add to the mix that it's also sitting on ley lines and right at the height of ley lines equaling spiritual energy. So no wonder crossroads took me 3 fucking episodes.
Seriously.
So I can't believe I almost like just didn't do that topic.
Yeah, you were like, I think I might touch on it next week. And then 3 weeks later, here we are.
Here we are. So some crossroads actually later became known as black dog lines because these crossroads sat on ley lines that happened to be known as very energetically charged, and people were known to have spiritual activity or spiritual encounters on these roads, mainly at night seeing ghostly black dogs.
Oh, how weird and specific.
Which is the beginning of ley lines now having a darker tone to spiritualism or a darker tone to ghosts.
Okay.
Because, I mean, realistically, if I'm playing like such a skeptic, a crossroad is just a fucking crossroad in the middle of the road. And at night, I'm sure there's some like stray dogs that happen to be next to crossroads.
You mean it makes sense if you think like, okay, well, if a dog is walking along a road and then there's 4 roads, like the possibilities that a person or a dog could be walking toward an intersection like that is pretty likely.
And if you're just completely shrouded and like everything has a spiritual connection, if you're walking at an intersection, you can say, I'm on a crossroad. Chances are it could be a ley line. And also, and like it could be a ley line because if ley lines by Alfred's theory, like the true archaeology theory of like ley lines are paths from point to point. Hello, of course, a crossroad is a clear path going from point to point. So there's a chance that if you're on an intersection late at night, you're on a ley line because it was once a clear path to go on, and there might be a stray dog. So it makes sense why a lot of people who have spiritualism on the mind would be on a, quote, ley line and see a, quote, hellhound on these paths. Anyway, all that to say, this was the beginning of things kind of morphing into like, ooh, there could be dark energy here. There could be, haunted houses on these locations. So the theory claims that ley line intersections have energy vortexes and thus spiritual portals, making locations particularly haunted. One investigator actually looked into the Enfield poltergeist, which I covered, I don't know how this was so long ago.
A long time ago, right?
Episode 56.
Wow. Oh, I thought it was even earlier than that. But episode 56, it's only like a year in to the show.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so someone looked into the Enfield poltergeist and realized that house had 13 ley lines intersecting through it.
Oh my God.
And also, if you think about the power of the number 13 on top of all that. So there's...
I'm curious about the Winchester Mystery House, since she was so obsessed with 13, if there were any ley lines under that house, because talk about a wild location.
I don't know on the top of my head, but I'm sure there are ley line maps online. I saw a lot of blogs that said, I used this one ley line map. So there's got to be something.
I'm scared to look because I feel like I'll look up my house and it'll be like, you're in the perfect abduction zone for aliens. I'm like, I don't want to know that. Like, don't tell me that.
So general beliefs about all this, it became, now that we're talking about like spirits and ghosts, the general belief became that ley lines are magnets drawing in all other nearby energy. And another theory is that a lot of ley lines are like shifts or cracks in tectonic plates, and that is magnetic energy being pulled through
Oh.
the water, which would explain why dowsing rods are affected by it. Again, there is no proof of this, but that's another theory. But basically, ley lines are magnets for energy. And if they really are like magnets, then there are some lines, some ley lines that are positive and some that are negative, just like how there are positive and negative poles.
Okay, that's interesting.
So that leads into more spirit theory on like, well, there are positive ley lines and there are negative ley lines. So on positive ley lines, people can feel healed or enlightened. You know how there's like those certain spots that a lot of people have like retreats to where there's like
Yes.
healing
The
waters and hot
Catholics love
springs.
shit like that.
So one theory is that these places could be intersecting with positive ley lines
Okay.
because it's energy that you can't explain it, but you know, all of a sudden you're healed or you feel revived after a week there. Meanwhile, there are also negatively charged ley lines where you could feel something really foreboding or something dark. And
Oh.
a lot of people don't even know, but their house could be on a ley line. So if you happen to have your house on a negative ley line, then your house could feel really chaotic. You might not sleep well. Maybe people get sick more
Is it
often.
like draining too, since it's like negative?
I would imagine if it's I would imagine yes. I kind of just associate it immediately with dark energy, but also if it is a magnet sucking out all energy, that could include yours, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So maybe you're just weaker.
Especially
Or I
if
like,
the positive is energizing, you know?
you know what I thought was kind of cool, and I have a feeling I think you should just run with this theory, even though there's no proof.
Okay.
But I feel like that one room in your house falls on a ley line, a positive ley line.
Which room?
The one where you said like anytime we feel sick, we just go be in there and we
Oh, at
feel
my
better
mom's
a day
house.
later.
Yeah. You know what? That's an interesting theory too. I like that.
I like to think it's exactly a dot on the positive ley line intersection map. Just because you said like there's no reason, I don't know why,
doesn't
but we
really
all
make
feel
sense.
better.
We just naturally gravitate toward that room. Yeah.
Yeah, and so since energy attracts other energy, it would make sense why we feel drawn to certain places or why we know not to go somewhere. Because just like a magnet, if you put, you know how magnets like they'll like fight each other.
Yeah.
That's, I mean,
There's like a
that is
resistance.
to like not go in certain rooms or to like you
That's
know something
cool.
staring at you. So I like that theory a lot, and I also like there's another add on to this that if your house sits on an intersection, it could feel like energy is constantly flowing through your house, and if it's two positives or whatever, maybe there's you know an intersection of two good waves of energy flowing through your house.
Oh.
But also if you're on an intersection of two negative lines or you know whatever isn't you know whichever aren't compatible with each other, then all of a sudden you might have a haunted house.
I like
Which
that theory. It's interesting.
I like it too, and I like that it kind of opens up the possibility because there are some people that say like I don't know why this place is haunted. There's never been any people who died here, but it could just mean that maybe when
That's
people
true.
say a location is haunted, maybe there doesn't have to be a ghost for something to be haunted. Maybe it's just the energy around it just
It's
naturally.
so active. Yeah.
Mhm.
Ooh.
And I mean, there was one theory like, well, what if there's a positive ley line and it happens to flow through or, you know, in the middle of this ley line? I'm pretending my arm is a line for people who are watching. If there's a ley line that's positive, but like there's a house on this ley line and then something really dark and fucking tragic happens, then like what happens to the energy of the ley line surrounding it? What happens to the house? Does like the positive energy beat
Right.
out
Like, does the ley line enhance or detract from that or amplify it? That's such a good point.
So one theory is that there can almost kind of like you know his original phrase of like terminal points or ley markers is that at these intersections they can radiate their own energy, and so on a positive line there can be patches of bad, but they could sometimes the theory was that these bad patches, if they're dark enough, they can suck the energy and over time expand and destroy an entire positive line, and so positive lines can become negative lines.
No.
On the flip side, I like to think bad lines can become good lines.
I hope so.
There's actually one theory from, I think this was the beginning of Satanic Panic, that if there was a coven or witches doing dark rituals on a positive line, if they do the same ritual or the same ceremony in the same spot over and over, eventually they're going to make a bad spot on a positive ley line, and
Oh.
that darkness can over time consume the positive line and will, quote, blacken the line
Oh God.
and change its energy from positive or light to dark. So I do like this theory because it gives another explanation outside of actual ghosts and dead people that,
Yeah.
and sometimes they would explain too, like if people try to get their house cleansed, like, oh, well, maybe you can't cleanse it because it just happens to be sitting on a bad part of property. Like, I don't know what else to tell you,
Maybe
So,
you just gotta move.
yeah. So if ley lines really are shifts in energy, or if they're shifts in the magnetic field, if the EMF or electromagnetic field is shifted at all, you're more likely to have ghosts or hauntings. So, so I'm trying to say on these locations, imagine if they're also haunted by a dead person. Now all of a sudden they're becoming increasingly darker or increasingly more active. So now there can be energy bursts on these ley lines. But in instances where a house maybe doesn't have ghosts and it's just because it's sitting on ley lines that gives it activity, because people are said to subconsciously or subliminally feel even the lower shifts, like vibrational shifts of shifts in the magnetic field. That could explain why a lot of times we feel really off in houses, even if they're not said to be haunted. We can just go into a
Right.
house and just feel
The
weird,
energy's off, right?
and it could just be a ley line.
Interesting.
So now I'm going to tell you how you can find your own ley lines, which this is just a very quick recap. There were several instruction sets online, but the one that I found the most was that first, research landmarks near you, which I want to give a very clear warning. A lot of ley line intersections, yes, they are historical landmarks. A lot of them are also, they were or could still be sacred spots for certain cultures. There could be ancient ruins that people still worship at. So please don't be a dick if you decide to go out and look for landmarks near you that you want to walk around in. Some places are closed spots. Some places have, certain customs, and if you don't
just
know
be
them,
respectful and
be
no
respectful.
trespassing, that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
exactly. So just don't be an asshole. Nowadays, like I said, there are ley line maps that you can print out, and I've heard that people will print them out and lay them on top of another map, and then you can draw the lines really easily.
Ooh, cool.
And if you go to these places, outside of just being respectful, the main thing is to open yourself up. And a lot of people will go up to these places or walk the lines to meditate or do some like intentional healing or just show appreciation to these locations and our history.
How do you know
I
if they're
mean,
positive or negative?
I don't know.
Oh,
They never got that far.
Alfred never let us know. Okay.
Alfred never let us know. So I'm gonna try to blow through this part because it's the last section. But I do want to say, if I didn't mention it, I would feel stupid. But because it's very closely attached. But ley lines are also, in theory, for maybe some more like quote granola people out there. A lot of people see ley lines as arteries or veins of Mother Earth.
Oh,
I know,
wow.
but hang in there. I do think it's super cool.
Listen,
though.
I'm absorbing it. I'm loving it.
Okay, cool. I when I first read it, I rolled my eyes a little bit because I was like, I've never had to like actually consider Mother Earth like as a person, but there are people out there who do. So, anyway, ley lines are said to be like her veins and her arteries, which I do think is like a really beautiful analogy.
It is.
Because if the energy is flowing through on a map, it's, Mother Earth flowing about you. So anyway, I'm into that. And apparently it leads into Mother Earth, just like all of us have our own energy chakras. Mother Earth has her own energy chakras.
Talk about granola. Oh my God. You've lived in LA too long.
They almost lost me, but then they suckered me right back with Mother Earth has her own chakras, and
You're
I was
like,
like,
I might as well learn about this.
I was like, I don't know why I ever doubted this. So, so for those who don't know, energy chakras are said to they're energies that travel through our body, and there's a lot, but there's 7 that we mainly focus on. They go from the base of your spine to the top of your head, and uh with each chakra they represent something about character and who you become, and um there if one is misaligned the others can be misaligned, so you have to like be in control and be aware of all 7 chakras. So Mother Earth apparently also has these, and uh these ley lines, if they're her veins, they're said to lead to 7 sacred sites around the worlds that are her 7 chakras, and are said to
Aw.
be massive energy vortexes. So the first one, I'm just going to go through the 7 of them. The root chakra, or at the bottom, is Mount Shasta, which I've covered
Hey.
in episodes 167 and 168. It's said to be one of the most charged mountains, and this chakra, the root chakra, is said to be based on your inner strength and stability and foundation. And one website even said that the root chakra is a powerful geyser for moving energy upwards. And Mount Shasta is a literal fucking volcano.
Okay,
So
now I see.
a powerful geyser moving energy
That's
upward.
pretty interesting.
And if you're all about foundation, I mean, this is literally it is a foundation. It's a volcano. Also, the second one is your sacral
Mhm.
chakra, and that's Lake Titicaca in South America.
Mhm.
This chakra is said to represent sexuality, sensuality, creativity, emotions, and at this lake, new life is abundant here, so that represents sexuality.
Mm.
There's a lot of emotion regulation and creativity that's done here, so people go here a lot for when they are at a crossroads.
Mhm. Mhm.
The third one is the your solar plexus chakra, which is 2 locations. It's Ayers Rock, known as Uluru, and the Olgas. And so these are both in Australia, and they are rocks that seemingly rise out of nowhere. And this chakra
Ooh.
is about personal power, self worth, purpose, willpower, and inner strength.
Oh, beautiful.
The fourth one is the heart chakra. And this chakra is known for love, compassion, forgiveness, and the area is Stonehenge or near Stonehenge and the surrounding areas of Glastonbury and Shaftesbury,
Wow.
which has a lot of healing waters. So, there's warmth and forgiveness and healing. And so that's why that represents that. The fifth one is the throat chakra, which is the Great Pyramid and Mount of Olives in Jerusalem.
Wow.
And this chakra is about expression, truth, and communication. And sorry, I'm blowing through these, but I
No,
know I'm
no.
already over my what I consider my
Your
time.
allotted time that we
Yeah.
never determined.
The sixth one is your third eye chakra. And what's interesting about this one is that I didn't know this, maybe you do, but the third eye chakra is not one location, it changes. Did you know that?
Wait, the third eye chakra. What do you mean?
Like the location of it is not one fixed spot. It always changes.
Like the location on the earth, or like the location on your body?
I think just the location of the earth, like the physical location that represents.
I mean, I
The
didn't
third
know
eye?
any of the things that I didn't know the earth had chakras, so this is all very new to me.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know about I think maybe the third eye also moves on us, like
No, I
the
think it's a pineal gland or however you say it.
But so the third eye, it's right now the location is near Stonehenge, but we say right now because this chakra is said to move. It must be just the earth because of the movement of the earth's axis it changes, but it changes
Oh.
every eon. So right now
Okay. Okay, sure.
every like 200 years.
Sure.
So in 2012, I wish I gave a shit about this stuff back then because it would have been so cool. But in 2012 was the last time that we shifted eons. So we've been alive for one of these. And we shifted into the age of Aquarius.
Oh, I didn't know.
And
I remember I was actually very into that.
oh,
Yeah, the guy I liked in high school was also really into it, so we would like send each other YouTube videos about it, about the age of Aquarius.
that's so cool. Well, eventually we'll be shifting into the age of Capricorn, in which case the third eye chakra of Mother Earth will be changing from Stonehenge area to Brazil.
Oh,
Interesting. Okay, so the seventh one is the crown chakra,
mhm.
which I think I'm saying it right. I had to check, but Mount Kailash in the Himalayan mountains is the location for the crown chakra of Mother Earth. It's said to be the most sacred mountain of the Himalayas. And this chakra is about your highest levels of wisdom, how to interpret the divine. And also in the Himalayas, it's known for Mount Everest, which is literally the closest we can get to the spirit world, which I think is
Right.
super cool. The existence of ley lines, uh, the fact that it like overlaps so well with so many of the chakras, or so many of like Mother Earth's chakras. These 7 locations happen to, I think all of them are ley line intersections.
That's amazing.
Anyway, I wanted to get through that just to tell you that in the world of skepticism, people who have issues with ley lines, there are many reasons why there is a very, very, very large chance that ley lines are kind of bullshit.
Yeah, so I was gonna say we don't know that they're real, right? Like it's not like oh you can like
Everything
see it's like pseudoscience.
It's pseudoscience.
Okay, got
Everything
it.
I have taught you today all came from enthusiasts who really want to believe it's true.
I see.
Um, but and you know what? Maybe if they were at a haunted location and it happens to fall on a ley line intersection, it will. I'll find a way to twist it into something cool for myself because I don't know any other way to live. But as I'm currently rooted in realism, in reality, it's said that ley lines do not exist,
Okay.
and there's a lot of good reasons for why they don't exist. To date, there's no empirical evidence of ley lines. Even if you Google search ley lines, there are a lot of conflicting maps. A lot of people agree that these sacred sites, uh, it's just so to do local maps of ley lines would be arbitrarily picking sites to try to make lines connect.
Right. I could see where it would be like confirmation bias looking at a
Yeah.
map and saying, "Oh, look, they line up." Yeah, I could see that.
And it's some locations like the Himalayas, or, like there are certain places that everyone would probably agree, like, oh, that probably we should find a way that a line connects from there to here.
Right.
But if you're talking about like a small town map and trying to find the through lines, like what hill is tall enough to be considered a landmark? Like
Right, right,
it
right, right,
what
right.
is there a riverbank that's mind-blowing enough that it would make sense why that was the site of an intersection? Like it just really becomes a cherry picking game very quickly.
Yeah.
And without an approved list, anyone can pick any location when they're trying to make lines make sense, and so everyone has a different pattern. And there's honestly millions of locations probably, and people could pick a
Right.
different one each time. So
Right.
on top of that, not all of the sites were built at the same time, so there's no way that like ancient builders in one area would have known about the sites of other areas to be
Yeah.
able to perfectly line them up, unless they were cosmically compelled to build in certain spots, which I don't think was the case.
No.
They couldn't intentionally build landmarks with like thousands of years ahead, in mind.
Yeah.
Also, making lines intersect with historic landmarks in the UK, which is what Alfred did, that was like not hard to do because there's so many fucking landmarks. So
Also, I feel like, Michael St. Michael's he's a pretty popular dude. Like I could see how that would
exactly.
just kind of you'd be like another St. Michael's. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. And so and also since there weren't, I mean, if you go back in history, a lot of places the only things that they had in their town was a church. So of
Right.
course there would be direct paths to only churches, which would make sense why St. Michael's has such a long fucking line.
Yeah.
And maybe the ley lines that seem haunted are, another theory is that maybe they're not haunted. If they are haunted, maybe they're haunted by ghosts, but not ley lines, because ley lines are a very easy way for us to just explain away eerie feelings when we feel uneasy in a location. Plus, a lot of ley line intersections, like I just said, happen to be at churches or like cemeteries. And so we can say, oh, this ley line is haunted because a cemetery sits on it.
Right.
But like it could also just be haunted because it's a fucking cemetery. Like
Or
it
it
doesn't
could
have
just
to.
feel creepy and it's not even
Yeah.
haunted. You're just creeped out because you're at a cemetery. Yeah. I see how it could unravel rather quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, uh, people who see ley lines on a map, they could just be looking for patterns, which is what our brains just naturally do. Another reason is another skeptical thing is that these lines could have easily been made by ancient surveyors because they were just the easiest route for dense forests. Like there's no quicker way from point A to point B than the shortest line
Just
possible.
go straight through, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I said earlier maybe there's like tectonic plates and magnetic energy. There's no proof of that either. And then the last one is that the lines from the very beginning seemed a little embellished in Alfred's work. Some of the lines were like much thicker than the others so that they would touch more sites on the map.
They just widened them.
Yeah. So the lines are just plus on top of that, the lines can be any length you want. And since there's like no measurable unit of line,
Right.
anyone can make a line long enough where like it takes 600 miles for this point and this point to reach each other with nothing else in between. But hey, it's a ley line. So it doesn't make sense. And just to show how vague these lines can be and like how there's really no true science to it, a lot of people have satirically made ley line maps between non-places like payphones and
Wendy's.
pizza places and yeah, like Wendy's. Like people have just made ley line maps to show how an arbitrary spot, if you draw a line through enough of them, it'll create a line.
Is the famous Saint Jack in the Box ley line through the Midwest Americas.
Well, in 2010, there was one guy named Matt Parker who laid out and figured out the precise geometry placement of all of the Woolworth stores near him. Like those defunct general stores that don't even exist.
Take a Starbucks and be like, you can make any pattern you want. There's so many of those in McDonald's. You could probably just create whatever pattern you want.
This is a quote from him. He was truly just being such an ass, and
I love it.
You know, just to prove that ley lines are bullshit. So when he figured out exactly how all these Woolworth stores linked together, I actually have a picture of his findings.
Oh my God.
Of the Woolworth stores that I will send to Geo's Trio.
Okay.
And it is weird that there is actually a symmetrical pattern to this, but it's just to show you that anything could be a symmetrical pattern.
Woolworth stores.
So here's a quote from him. We know so little about the ancient Woolworth stores, but we do still know their locations. I thought if we analyzed the sites, we could learn more about what life was like in 2008. Like...
Okay, that's pretty funny. Ancient Woolworth stores.
So he made a good point that like anything can be a pattern if you look hard enough for it. And finally, I'll say, and on BBC, they said that ley line theory really comes down to the natural need to belong and to have answers to why we feel connected to certain places. And the bottom ley line is that the only meaning to ley lines is what energy you put into them.
Okay, I mean, I can back that. I feel like that goes toward a lot of paranormal phenomenon, like the energy you give to it, you know? I mean, it sounds granola, but I think it makes sense.
Anyway, that's ley lines for you.
Good job, Em. What do you think? Do you know? Do you believe? I mean, obviously we don't know, but what do you think?
I don't know. I also wonder, it feels like it could be one of those like tulpa situations where enough people put their energy and mind into it that maybe they accidentally conjure energy to these spots. But I don't know. It probably isn't real. I do like the original archaeology thought of like,
I do too.
Ancient routes.
Yeah, and I think that honestly, that alone, I think is very cool. Like even all the other stuff aside.
Yeah. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm kind of probably on the same page as you. I would love someday if you covered dowsing rods as an episode. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I've only used them recently in like our paranormal investigating, but I've never actually used them. Like I know a lot of people who live on the land use them like and not in a spiritual way, just to like actually find water, where to put a
Mhm.
water well, that kind of thing. And so I think that's kind of a similar concept of like it got hyped up spiritually, but it's also used as a tool like outside of that world.
Exactly.
So yeah, that'd be
Yeah, like
interesting.
I guess I can follow ley lines if those ley lines are under streams.
Yeah, that's
it's like
true. That's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
anyway,
So
I that was I'm glad I finally gave you what you wanted
I'm
in the
so
world of ley
happy.
lines.
I was waiting for that one, and I didn't even remember that I was waiting for it. Yay!
Yay! All right, now bum me out, please.
Whee! Can I pee first?
Yeah,
Sorry, I drank so
I'll
much
go
coffee.
I'll go get a drink too.
Okay, great.
Elevator music.
Please stand by. We have to step away and go get wine. Answer the door.
How was
Okay.
your pee?
You know what? It was splendid. Thank you for asking. What did
Was
you
it-
get? What?
Oh, I was gonna ask more about your pee. Was it a never mind. Did you have fun?
I had a great time. What did you get to drink?
I said never mind because I then realized I didn't have any questions, and I was like,
Good.
no, it wasn't gonna be anything too gross. I was gonna be like, did you have a good time? And then I realized that was kind of the only question I had. What did I get to drink? I got myself an LD, which I'm having a good time with.
Oh, a liquid death. I was like, sorry, my brain is not computing. Okay.
Don't you call it an LD? What? Did I see?
No, I don't. I do now. But did you see that? Oh, maybe I do. Anyway, did you see that they came out with teas?
I did. I'm
You
happy
don't
about
like
that.
them?
I haven't tried them. I get nervous when I think they were a small business for a very long time, and now that they're booming, I feel like they feel the need to deliver to keep the momentum going, which I understand as a strategy, but I get nervous that like I don't want the flavors to get too crazy or for them to go a little too wild. Like example, I feel like Liquid Death, they had the black can, they had the white can. They had still, they had sparkling. That was it. And it was a good time. Everyone loved it.
No,
And
me
now-
not.
Everyone but Christine loved it.
I only like the flavor ones.
And then they came out with the flavor ones, but here's the problem with that is that now a lot of places I've noticed don't just have plain old fucking water because they're trying to cater to people with like all the sparkling
why would you want
stuff.
to buy plain water?
I literally did it.
I know
So
why.
it's
It's water. Get it out of your fridge.
I guess so. I
Save
don't know.
the
There's
world.
something
Save
about it.
Mother
Also,
Earth and all her veins and her many chakras.
that's true. But I mean, not me. I'm not included in this. But you know what? In high school, I would have been included in this though. Is that there are a lot of people who can't drink anymore and just want some water, but they want to feel the experience and like of like holding a can or like not get questioned at a party. Like I understand like the whole like. I mean, it's genius marketing, but as someone who doesn't like sparkling water, I have now been affected by them pushing so many sparkling waters.
You don't like sparkling water at all. So you're basically only on the still water train with Liquid Death.
Yes, and because they've been trying to cater to the masses, which like I don't know, I get why they're doing it, but I kind of don't because I'm like there's so many flavored sparkling waters out there.
Yeah, but
like
these are different. Like I don't drink any of the other ones anymore because I'm like these taste so much better. They actually have like juice in them. They're like 30 calories. They're not like the 0-calorie ones. They're not like they're so good just the way they are that I'm like I'm very excited.
As a big fan of LD, I'm sure that they taste great. I have no doubt about that, but like they've made a business call that is now boxing me out with my still water because now I wonder if they only get like so much room in a fridge at a store or something, and now it's all just fucking flavored sparkling water. And like one of their OG fans now can't just get my goddamn still water. That's all I want.
You just order it online. That's what I do.
I'm just venting. I liked what I had and it's not happening as often anymore. And
Well,
I'm
anyway, they just
peeved.
released an armless Palmer and I'm very excited to try it. I ordered it on Amazon and it's coming in a couple weeks because it's, I think, a pre-order. So I'll let you know how it is.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate
it's
that.
sweetened with agave. I'm very excited about it.
That's nice.
Yeah, so we'll see. But anyway, they are not a sponsor yet.
They're not well, especially after I just like poo-pooed their
Yeah, what the
sparkling
hell?
flavored water. Maybe was that why you were trying to save face because you just really want them to send you some?
genuinely don't understand why anyone would buy still water at a store, but whatever.
As someone who doesn't drink a lot of things because I have such limited options, sometimes the fun options I get are purely
okay,
based on the
no,
container.
I do understand that. Yes,
So
it doesn't surprise me that they were like, okay, that's not our big hit seller. Like, we got to move on to other.
I'm saying I get it. I in a selfish way, I'm just so upset about it.
Just
So
order them online. They're all online. That's what I do.
yeah, but it is a fun little treat though when I go to a store and I'm like, yay! And so I feel like that moment is happening less and less. So anyway, I saw them at Bevmo and I really ran with it. So that's why I have them currently. So thank you, Bevmo, for hearing my cries. Oh, Christine.
Oh my God. Let's talk about something actually sad, okay? I'm going to tell
Instead
you.
of liquid death, we'll talk about actual death.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Our lives are obviously very tragic when we don't get the beverages we want, but
Okay.
some people's lives are unfortunately much more tragic.
Much worse.
Yeah, so we're going to cover a cold case today, and this is the cold case of Lauren Spierer.
Spear?
Spierer.
Okay. Like mirror.
Sort Spierer.
Okay. Got it.
So Lauren Spierer was originally from Scarsdale, New York, and was born in 1991, so pretty much our age. She was studying textiles merchandising at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, right around the time when we were in college. And she was described as a great kid, very outgoing, very social. She did ballet. She was high energy, had a, quote, zest for life, as this tends
Lit up a room.
as it always just so foreshadowing,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just, we're starting off just in the most sad trope ever. She just was a bright light in this world. In a video of her bat mitzvah, for example, people praised her endless potential and her joy of living life. She was 20 years old and a sophomore when she went missing in the early morning hours of June 3rd, 2011.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What were you doing June 3rd, 2011, Em?
I was busy turning 19.
Yeah, I know. What were you doing, though?
What did I do? Well, probably something incredibly happy, I think.
That's good. Okay, well.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't
milk?
No, that was my 21st birthday.
Sorry, my bad.
No, and this one I probably had a party at home with some people, and nope. I was gonna say I think I hooked up with somebody. Nope, I did not.
You did not. You just drank chocolate milk. Oh wait, no, that also didn't happen. Wow.
I just stood in a corner and like ate goldfish. I don't know.
Oh, that's what I was doing too.
All right, cool.
So Bloomington, do you know anything about Bloomington, Indiana? Okay.
Mm-mm.
So this is where Indiana University is. I only know it because I'm from the Midwest and I know people who went. Lisa's brother actually went there too. It's like a classic college town. There's like a big university. IU is a Big Ten school, so like sports are really big. Greek life's really big. It's just like that classic, college, American college atmosphere.
Wait, so is it Iowa University itself?
No, Indiana University.
Indiana. Oh God, sorry. That's so
Yeah.
embarrassing.
It is.
I just heard
You should
IU
be.
and didn't know what I was doing. Okay.
Didn't know what I was doing. Yeah, so it's in Indiana, a couple hours from me actually here. And according to Lauren's friend, there's just so many people around and out at all hours. There was always something going on. So, like I said, IU was a Big Ten or is a Big Ten school, big into school spirit, big into sports. And local bars were always packed with IU students who drank and partied until the early morning when they would walk home, get a couple hours of sleep before class the next day or whatever they were doing the next day. Just like your classic cliche college campus. So former students described the feeling of campus as very close-knit, and they never felt unsafe because they were always surrounded by other students, which I think is kind of a big part of the story, is sort of like that false sense of security that you feel somewhere like a college campus where you're all kind of the camaraderie of everybody else as a student like you, and you kind of get this false sense of security. So Lauren's parents even felt that IU was the idyllic college setting for her. They felt like she was away from the dangers of the world. Like she was really safe there. And she pretty quickly made a good group of friends who described her as bubbly. One of her friends described her as the kind of person you fall in love with as soon as you meet her. She just did really well in school, just had great friendships. And the most popular bar at the time in town was called Kilroy's. And this is where Lauren and her friends would go all the time. This was like their regular spot. It was just a safe, familiar space. Even when it was packed, it was just their go-to.
Mm-hmm.
So Lauren met most of her friends a few years earlier at a summer camp in Pennsylvania, and that's also where she had met her boyfriend, Jesse Wolf, and her friend, Jason Rosenbaum. So on June 2nd, she had had friends over at her place, and it was the end of the semester. Everyone was starting to unwind. The group was drinking wine and watching a basketball game for most of the day. And that evening, Jesse was at home at his own apartment, so that's her boyfriend. And Lauren texted him that she was just going to go to sleep after the game.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, her plans changed later that night because at 12:30 a.m., surveillance footage at her apartment shows her leaving her house. And when she's leaving her house at 12:30 a.m., she looks happy, peppy, like she's about to go have fun. And you can see on the surveillance that she walks 2 blocks to her friend Jason's townhouse, where Jason was hosting a party along with his friends Corey Rossman and Michael Beth.
Cool. And so far, by the way, I know she already said, "Oh, I'm gonna go to bed," and then she like ended up going out. College was a wild time. You didn't know what you were doing 5 minutes from now.
It's not that weird, right? Like, I totally agree. It's like,
before it becomes like, oh, it sounds like she was up to something
she was
shady.
lying or something. But like, I totally agree with you because, and who knows, like, her boyfriend was probably asleep and maybe she was like, I don't want to wake him and text him, or he doesn't need to know where I am all the time. I mean, it doesn't.
There were so many times where I thought I was in for the night and someone would say, "Oh, come to the I went to a small college. They were like, "Come to the gas station with us." And I go, "Okay."
That's the name of the cool hip bar downtown.
Well, remember I told you we used
Sunoco.
to break into the bowling alley?
Mhm.
When that got knocked down, all we had was a gas station. So, but I mean, you would think that you're in for the night and then 5 seconds later there's a plan. So
I mean, that happens to me all the time when I'm like, I'm going to bed, I'm going to finish this curry that I left in the room, and then all of a sudden there's a knock at my door and Em has their shoes on and says, let's watch Zach Bagans, and
it was the last time I ever had those shoes on. Thank you very much.
Before I know it, suddenly I own the shoes, and then the airport does, and it's just, oh my gosh, what a mess. So yeah, I've been there, and I text, you know what? Perfect example. I texted Blaze, I'm going to bed, and then you showed up and we hung out all night, and it's like,
exactly.
It's not, I wasn't lying to him, I just didn't update him on my
just
plans.
life happened.
Life happened, and life is Em showing up at the door.
Aww.
So I am glad you said that because I totally agree. I didn't find it like that weird. But so either way, she decides to go a couple blocks down the street to her friend Jason's townhouse. He's hosting a party with his friends Corey and Michael, and it was just a pretty classic standard college party. They were drinking. Some people have speculated there may have been drugs available. And Bloomington, pretty much like I would say any major college town, did have an active drug scene, mostly party drugs like Coke and Xanax. A former student said there were plenty of students who had money and could afford not only the drugs, but also the legal risks, which I thought was interesting. That came with drugs. So like they were in a privileged position where, if they were caught with substances or whatever, they could get their way out of it. So,
slap on the wrist.
Yeah, exactly. So interestingly, Lauren's parents didn't realize that Lauren was somewhat involved in this scene. And not extensively, but police did find a small amount of coke in her room after she disappeared. And, this was not abnormal for kids in college experimenting with different party drugs. She was kind of doing what everyone in her social circle did. And like I said, there was this element of feeling safe among your peers and nothing would happen. But the only reason that this really did shock her parents is because Lauren had a serious heart condition. And I mean, you who have a heart issue, you can't take certain substances,
Yeah.
I mean, and so
and she knew about her heart condition?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I am so glad that I never had a Coke phase.
I mean, I'm always glad I never had a Coke phase.
I mean, yeah, always. But let's just say that I'm if there was like a predisposition to having an interest
Right.
in that, I have it. I don't know if there actually is, but let's just say I've been surrounded by. I grew up hearing a lot of stories about how fun it can be,
Right.
and because I just by choice never did anything. I'm so glad I didn't follow in any footsteps because not knowing at the time I had a heart condition, I
Oy
could have
vey.
like fucked myself up. And to know, I mean, that's scary. If she knew she had a heart condition and did it anyway, that's super dangerous.
Yeah, it was super dangerous. Her heart condition is called long QT syndrome, LQTS.
Hmm.
And basically, it's an abnormal feature of the heart's electrical system that can lead to a life-threatening arrhythmia. So if it gets kind of out of whack, she could die. And so
Mm.
it was very serious. She actually had to quit all of her sports in high school, like any physical activity, because it would activate it too badly.
Shit, let me look this thing up. Hang on a second. Hang on. Let me just add this to the things I'm going to talk to my doctor about. LQTS?
Yeah, long QT syndrome.
Long QT. Long QT. I do have QT syndrome, but I don't have the other.
Boy, I was waiting for that one.
Okay, it's added to the docket. Thank you.
Yeah, so this had deeply impacted her life ever since she was a child. She had to quit all of her sports in high school, and it was just something that was just a major hindrance in her life. And so the fact that she would be doing drugs, especially drugs like cocaine, in this with
Mhm.
this condition, put her at very high risk for dangerous reactions, possible death. And so at some point, Lauren left the party with Corey and walked to Kilroy's, their bar, not the gas station, but that's how you might
They
remember
had just
it.
as much fun. They had just as
Yeah,
much
they
fun.
did. Listen, they were on cocaine. You were getting slushies at the gas station. I'm sure it was all equal. Um, so she left the party with Corey, the friend Corey, and walked to Kilroy's for more drinks. They arrived at Kilroy's around 2 a.m., but only stayed for about half an hour. And then this is where things start to go awry because Lauren leaves the bar, but she leaves. Oh, God, okay, I feel like I made a point of bringing this up and I didn't mean to, and I wasn't trying to make light of this, but she left her shoes at the bar. And like, I know we
Oh
just talked
shit.
about
Okay.
you leaving your shoes. I had completely forgotten that part of the story, so I wasn't trying to like make light of this at all.
Wow. All right.
But she left her shoes and her cell phone at Kilroy's. And so that alone, I feel like indicates she was pretty intoxicated,
Mm-hmm.
just to be that drunk that you go out and leave not only your shoes, but your cell phone at the bar and kind of just wander out. And you can actually see around 2:30 a.m. she's walking back to her place with Corey, which is only a block away from the bar. And when they get to the apartment complex, they get off the elevator on the 5th floor where Lauren lives, and they run into a group of 4 men. And these men are IU students as well. So
Okay.
there's speculation here that they were perhaps friends of Lauren's boyfriend, Jesse, who was not around that
Like
day.
they just kind of recognized each other and said, "Hey."
Yeah. So yes. So there's speculation that like maybe they knew. But the reason that that's kind of important is that if they were friends of Jesse's, perhaps they were like, "Why are you coming home with a different guy?" Like,
Mm.
he's walking her home, and if
Right.
they kind of run into each other in the hallway outside her apartment, there could have been some sort of like, why are you here with this
Right.
dude instead of Jesse, who's at home?
Mhm.
So it's a little odd, but for whatever they discuss, they get into a disagreement. Corey and these 4 dudes. So the way it appears is that they didn't like the way Corey seemed to be handling or manhandling Lauren, who was totally wasted. Corey apparently said something that pissed them off, and one of them punched Corey in the face.
Mm. That's so dramatic. Oh my gosh.
Like such a dramatic scene right outside the elevator in the hallway. So in the end, Corey and Lauren walk away from this altercation, and surveillance footage shows Corey and Lauren now turning around and leaving the apartment complex. But now on the footage, you can see how absolutely drunk she is because she is barely able to walk. She falls twice in the alley on camera.
Mm.
And again, she's barefoot. So she's just totally drunk.
Like smashed. And
Just
like,
totally smashed, yes.
which again, it's college. Good for her. But
Yes,
also,
right. It's not like abnormal, but it's.
but so that gives some insight into like, oh, maybe he was maybe they had some legitimate concerns about how he was handling her. If he, I mean, do you think, do we find out later if he had any ill will about that? Like he
He
might have been bringing.
literally zipped his mouth and never said a fucking word. He's never said a fucking
Okay.
word. So we
Okay.
don't
Got it.
really know. And I think, like, kind of looking at it, like, zooming out a bit, I think I see what you're saying too, of like that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like that she's so wasted and he's like bringing her home and that maybe they
Mhm.
stop them, like, hey, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. Well,
Like, just out of
so
concern for her.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I definitely think there can be like friends that are guys that are truly just trying to get you home. But like if a group of people who knew her thought that this guy was handling her a bit
Yeah.
weird.
Like felt like something was wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to discredit them if they had a legit concern, but also,
Mhm.
I mean, we don't know. This could have been a totally innocent man.
It could have
Just
been just
trying to
like
be
a weird drunk fight that had nothing to do with anything.
yeah.
But you know, considering the fact that she was so drunk and then they left her apartment after that, it's just an odd, I don't
Yeah.
know, series of events. So she's in the alley. She's so drunk, she's falling over. She's barefoot, and she falls twice. And at this point, Corey decides to just pick her up and throw her over his shoulder in a fireman's carry,
Oh wow.
which is just kind of jarring to watch. Like, it's like,
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Like, it's not, things aren't good. Like, whether she's just really drunk and can't walk or whatever it is, it's just like not a great sight. It's like she doesn't seem to be doing well.
Okay.
And this footage, unfortunately, is the last time Lauren has ever been seen. So it's literally her just getting carried away, like over this guy's shoulder.
Not a good look. Yeah.
No. So Corey, this is what his story is. He insists that when he got home with Lauren, he threw up on the steps and went straight to bed.
Okay.
Very college. His roommate, Michael, backs this story up, and both of them say that Lauren went back over to Jason's house to keep partying, which was only 30 feet from Corey's and Michael's place. So the story is she goes to Jason's place, but Jason says the party at his place was already over at this point. It's like, after 3 a.m. And when she shows up at his door, he realizes she's in such awful shape that he insists that she crash on his couch. And Lauren, who, according to the footage we just talked about, was too drunk to even walk on her own, apparently told Jason she refused to go to sleep on his couch. She wasn't done partying and left his place and headed down the street toward her apartment. And if this is the truth, like if this is the actual series of events that happened, then he was the last person to ever see Lauren alive at around 4:30 in the morning on June 3rd.
Wow.
So, between seeing her with Corey in the alley and then this, we don't 100% know what happened here, but this is their story, their version of events. So later that night, Lauren's parents, Robbie and Charlene, got a call that Lauren never made it home that morning and that she was officially missing. So, the news picked up the story right away, and kind of as is expected, it became really high profile. She's this beautiful young white woman, just like, college age, just the exact kind of story that, gets picked up by the mass media and goes like wildfire. Celebrities like the Kardashians and Ryan Seacrest even tweeted about this, calling for volunteers to help search for her. There was $100,000 reward to find her. And I just feel like this is in such stark contrast to so many missing persons cases, because it's just, it's something we all know and understand. And I did want to point out that next week I will be covering kind of the opposite case where,
okay.
where, the victims are sex workers and people who just got not even the time of day from the media, let alone the Kardashians and Ryan Seacrest. You know what I mean?
Right.
And obviously everybody deserves to be searched for on a national level. Everybody deserves to be cared for no matter what their background is or what they do. But I just feel like it's worth mentioning because it was such a viral case, and so many of these cases don't even go anywhere. So anyway, there's this $100,000 reward. The entire town mobilizes. Police, military, hundreds of volunteers take to the streets. They search every alley, park, and dumpster for any sign of Lauren. People are on horseback searching wooded areas. They're searching local creeks, rock quarries, and they're searching the landfill. And
Wow.
in local neighborhoods, they're opening all the trash bags, which is just so dark and scary. And Lauren's dad, in an episode of 2020 I watched, said this was the hardest part of the search, to just stand there and watch people digging through trash, like looking for his daughter. And
Oh
he
my
just
God.
broke down crying when he described it. He said it was just horrific, a horrific experience. They're just terror stricken, like, you want to find her, but also not like that,
Yeah.
So people were going through the woods calling Lauren's name, and her friends said they kept fantasizing about hearing her call back to them, but it never happened. And Lauren's mom said at the time that she woke up every day thinking, today is the day, that we're going to find her. And she
Yeah.
went to bed every night knowing she had failed. And
Oh
she
my God.
felt like she just could not do what it took to find her daughter. So hope starts to fade, of course, and days go by, then weeks, and then years. And years are going by without a single clue or sign of where Lauren could have ended up. So it's been 5 years at this point after her disappearance when Dateline decides to do a special on the case. And at this point, they interview students around IU's campus, and this is really upsetting. The students they interviewed said they had either never heard of Lauren or they felt her case was no longer relevant to their lives. Okay,
What?
must be nice. And one girl
Like
even
they just were oh, I'm bored.
yeah, not interesting. One girl said she felt it was old news and people should, quote, let it go and move on.
Who said that?
What's the matter with you?
Oh my God. Well, my God.
the
I don't even know what
hell?
to say to that. I don't even know what to say to that.
I
I
don't
hope
either. And it's
karma
like,
gets you.
seriously, like, I hope you kind of reassess things, because that's not a great way to look at the world.
Yeah, I hope one day you have an awakening and then lose a lot of sleep in the middle of the night realizing you said that
You
publicly.
said that on national TV. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe she
Jeez.
already did, because I bet people were like, fuck you. I'm
Yeah,
sure it
yeah.
wasn't a good look. But of course, people who knew and loved Lauren couldn't just move on and let it go.
Like,
Peace.
what?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. Very naive way to look at things. Her parents, who posted a banner to Facebook that read, "As determined as day one," began a social media campaign. And the goal was to keep Lauren in public consciousness in case one day somebody remembered something or decided to step forward. So Lauren's mom wrote a note on Facebook to whoever knows what happened to Lauren. And the note read, "There is always someone actively working to find you. Someone is always looking for you. How ironic, just as we are looking for Lauren, we are just as diligently looking for you. I have to believe that someday you will let your guard down." That gives me goose
Oh
cam.
God. Yeah.
And they talked about that. They were like, the most frustrating thing is knowing that somebody out there knows what happened and won't
And is saying fuck all.
saying fuck all and could change our lives, like could just completely change our lives. Just an answer, just like any sort of information that could at least let them have some closure. And
Even
it's
if it
just
were
saying
like,
nothing.
I mean, like even though they're like, quote, the bad guy, I just like wish they had one moment of weakness to just own up and be like, this is where she is. Like,
Just even an anonymous tip, anything.
Anonymous.
I mean, it's just
Anonymous.
heartbreaking that people just go to their graves with this kind of thing and let people just suffer. So from the get-go, Lauren's parents felt that the men who had spent that evening with Lauren might know more than they are saying. And I mean, to be fair, they were the last ones seen with her and the last ones to see her alive. But of course, they all lawyered up almost immediately. And, this is that kind of gray space we touch on where it's like, knowing your rights and defending yourself is not a crime. And we always, say if you're in this situation, your best bet is to get a lawyer, someone to defend you. But,
also, I was gonna say if they're college kids that from, and they go to a school that we've already discussed is like probably got a lot of white wealth.
Mhm.
Like I feel like they probably, I don't even think it was up to them. I feel like their parents immediately lawyered up. It was
Sure.
like, don't say anything. Don't say anything.
But I mean, to be fair, like, I think that's what my parents would do. I mean,
Yeah, no,
obviously, I
it's
come
I
from a privileged
understand.
background as well, but it's like, I'm not saying
If
like
you
a
can have
wealthy
no,
background, but just like a white, like, I feel like if I were in this scenario, my parents would be like, and I were 19 years old or whatever, I feel like my parents would be like, you're getting a lawyer. It's just like the
yeah, I think
automatic
it's
reaction.
I mentioned the wealth thing because I feel like it wasn't even a question like they could afford it. Like I think there were a lot of people who would also lawyer up, but maybe would have struggles in that way. But I
That's
think
true. You couldn't afford, right. That's true. Not everybody can just like lawyer up and get someone to
yeah,
defend them right away who's
I think
not.
they were just four kids with parents who had access to probably I'm assuming a lawyer pretty quickly, and again, understandably, because I'd do the same thing. They were just
Mhm.
like, "Don't say a fucking thing. We're getting a lawyer." You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. And so like you can see both sides. It's sort of like, well, in this scenario, most of us would hope that we'd be able to set up a defense pretty quickly, or for our own children. Like if our own children were in this scenario, and you don't want to mess with it. I can see why you'd be like, get a lawyer, don't say anything, even if you did nothing wrong. Just keep your
It
mouth
is
shut.
such a double-edged sword
It
though, because
is.
it just looks guilty, even though it's just self-preservation.
Exact. And it's funny you say that, 'cause self-preservation ends up being a word that comes up here throughout the
Mm.
story. But so they lawyer up almost immediately, and it's frustrating because Lauren's parents are like, yes, we understand that it's self-preservation, but we specifically feel like they know something that they're hiding.
Mm.
So it's just a hard spot to be in. And police were never able to confirm her boyfriend Jesse's alibi because he was home alone that night. So for what it's worth, we're not even sure, whether he was involved or not. And he did initially help search for Lauren the first 2 days of the search efforts, but his parents actually came to town and removed him from the search. So this goes back to
Oh,
kind
wow.
of being in that position where you're young enough that your parents are still kind of like looking out for you
Yeah.
and like making decisions on your behalf, in self-preservation, I suppose. And so, the one of the theories that the investigator, he's a former FBI investigator that the family hired, and one of his theories was, potential jealousy, like maybe the boyfriend found out she was out with these dudes, and maybe that had something to do with it, but there really is no clear evidence of that.
Hmm.
So either way, Lauren's friends spoke out in defense of Jesse. They were big fans of his. They said he was a loving boyfriend. He'd never hurt her. He would never hurt her. And so, he was defended pretty early on by everybody who knew him. Police could also never confirm that Lauren ever left Corey and Michael's apartment to go to Jason's. And if she had gone to Jason's, they could never confirm that she left Jason's. So there's just no footage, like, CCTV footage after that alley. We just don't know what happened after that. However, as we both can probably tell, it did not look good for Corey that the last time she was seen was him carrying her,
Yeah.
apparently blacked out, away from her home. Like,
Yeah.
leaving her home with her on his shoulder. It's just like not a good look. So Corey later claimed that after having been punched in the face, he was concussed and lost his memory of what happened.
Okay.
And so,
Concussed.
yeah, he claimed that, remember, he got punched in the face.
Oh, he got a concussion from it? Okay.
He claims that he got a concussion and then forgot everything that happened that night.
But if you're concussed and also incredibly drunk, that's like so much more dangerous.
I mean, he did say he puked all over the stairs, so, it's possible, but he was
true.
also drunk, so who knows. He said he lost most of his memory from the night as a result of getting punched. But as for Lauren's parents, her dad describes it as self-preservation. He's like, I don't believe that story. I don't believe he lost his memory because he got punched in the face. I think it's self-preservation.
It feels a little reaching because, well, I don't know. I feel like he could have just said, I was so drunk, I was blackout drunk, and that would have been enough. I feel like
that, yeah.
I feel like a
punch
concussion
in the face and all that
if
seems
it's not real, it feels like it's
feels like kind of
overreaching.
convoluted. Yeah, it feels like a little complex of a story. And also, like, it doesn't necessarily defend you from anything. It just
Right.
lets you just plead the fifth, basically. Say, I don't know,
Yeah.
So he actually, Corey, is the only one of the three men of interest who would never agree to speak to Lauren's parents. So,
Hmm.
for what it's worth, all the others, even with their lawyers, were, were comfortable speaking to Lauren's parents. He's the only one who refused. And her father says, he can't make any claims. He's not sure of anything, but he feels this memory loss thing is not true and that it's just self-preservation. So, he's frustrated that the last person who saw their daughter alive will not meet with him, will not talk to him, will not give him anything, give her parents any sort of information. They're just really frustrated about that. But that said, according to Corey's lawyer, he has cooperated fully with official investigators. So, we don't really
right.
know. It's just kind of a closed door. So tips started coming in about Lauren. Every single lead, of course, was a dead end. The case eventually went cold, and Bloomington seemed to move on. And when this happened, Lauren's parents hired a team of private investigators. And one of those was the retired FBI agent who I described earlier, who says when someone has gone missing, it's usually a case of someone in their inner circle. And we've learned that from Law and Order SVU, I think. Like,
I certainly think so. Yeah.
yeah, like most often in cases of abuse, in cases of abduction, all that, it's typically somebody most
Mhm.
often. And so private investigators and many others felt maybe drugs had something to do with Lauren's story and what happened to her that night. The media portrayed her as this party girl, and it kind of put on this sort of shade of blame over her as like she was in party mode when she vanished. So, she should have known better. She was asking for it, that kind of thing, which obviously is fucked up.
Yeah, I think so.
But, hundreds of other students, thousands of other students were doing that same exact thing that night, getting drunk with friends and going home, and they were fine. So it's really not fair to say. And I mean, we're going to touch on that next week when I cover the story of, when the victims are sex workers, and it's like, well, they shouldn't have put themselves in that position. And it's like, that's really not a fair way to look at any of this.
Yeah, it's just because of their title. Because right now we're talking about a story where the same thing happened. So.
Yeah, precisely. So in an interview, Lauren's mom says she didn't make wise choices that night, but she didn't make herself disappear.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, like that's the best way to put it. And aside from the men Lauren was with that night, police considered that Lauren may have been a victim of a random attack. Like that was definitely, when we said she walked home, maybe she met with foul play on the way home.
I guess so.
Lauren was extremely small. She was 4'11" and only weighed 95 pounds. So it would have been pretty easy for someone to just kind of grab her off the street, especially when she was so out of it. And the 2020 episode I watched talked about campuses being an ideal place. This is very disturbing, everyone. So just, heads up. But
if your kid's about to go to college,
I was just
earmuffs.
about to say, yeah, if you have, or not earmuffs, turn the volume up because, worth remembering that campuses apparently are an ideal place for a predator to look for vulnerable girls like Lauren who have been drinking, who, like I said, have this false sense of security being on their own campus, surrounded by familiar faces, feeling like they're safe.
I.e. Ted Bundy, his whole thing was college girls. So
his whole thing of making people feel safe around him. And so, there's this idea that you could just drive into a college campus and target vulnerable young women like Lauren, especially if they're alone, especially if they're small in stature, like 95 pounds like Lauren. And so this 2020 episode that came out, it was about 5 years ago. And at the time, they said in the last 5 years, 56 female college students of all walks of life, all ethnicities, have vanished off college campuses. And 3 were found dead, 4 were still missing at the time. And apparently there are people who just cruise campuses to find victims that don't offer much resistance and who are alone and, easy prey, so to speak. And so, that's definitely a possibility. There was actually a white pickup truck seen on camera circling the block the morning Lauren went missing. But, that lead just went nowhere. So it's a possibility, but
it could also, if we're like really opening up any opportunity, it could have also just been someone not on the official college campus or driving by it, but like my school, we had I they were very obnoxious, but they would I think I already told you about like the bicycle gang.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was always worried that like when they grow up, they're gonna like fucking bother girls on campus for sure. But their thing was that they would always go to places right next to campus, so like where all the students would go grocery shopping, or where
Mm.
that fucking gas station, or like, oh, let's go off campus and go to a restaurant that's walking distance. So it
Mhm.
was always like the perimeter of the campus that
Oh,
was
right.
even more dangerous because it was just easier access and away from cameras.
And they weren't
So
like standing out because they weren't
right.
students. They
Right.
yeah. That's an interesting
But they would
point
just
too.
they would approach people and make them so uncomfortable. And when I was there, they were like just middle schoolers. I was like, I'm scared for like when like a few years from now when like they're old enough to like have a car
Oh
and like
boy.
threaten somebody. They freaked me out. Like and their whole thing was just being near the campus but not on it. So it could have been someone. It could have been a gas station. She could have literally, like what I used to do all the time, walk to the gas station and grab a drink. She could have done that on her way home. You don't know.
You
So
never know. There's no way to know. I mean, it's just she potentially, if the story is true, she just left her friend Jason's house to walk home. And, it's only a block, but who knows what could have happened.
yeah, but also earlier that night said she was going
That's
home,
true.
and then she went to a party. So maybe she was planning on going home and took a sharp left somewhere.
That's a great point. Maybe she went somewhere else. I mean, I would imagine if she did go to like a gas station or something, it would be on camera.
Good
But
point.
you're right. She could have gone to another friend's house.
She could have.
Like,
Yeah, she could have ran into another group of people looking a party, and then they
You
all
never know.
wander into the woods or some shit.
she could have gotten in someone's car. Like, we don't know, which is just
I
so
mean,
frustrating.
Also, this is this is so disturbing, but it sounds like she was very vocal about looking for a party. So if she went up to a random stranger and just said, I'm looking a party, and they could tell she was already fucked up, I mean, it's not hard to lure her away saying,
I mean,
oh, we've got a party.
exactly. It's sort of like that's exactly one of the theories is that someone saw her and said, well, that's a
Yeah.
target, And yeah, that's exactly why it's so frustrating. It feels like it could go in one of 1,000 directions, and we just don't know which it is. And one of the, like I said, there was a car circling, and they couldn't really pin that down. It didn't seem to go anywhere, that lead. But there was another lead. There was this man in the area who had recently been released from prison after he was convicted for assaulting and strangling his ex-wife. And an anonymous tipper called in and claimed that he had killed Lauren and buried her on a farm.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And so he
And
agreed.
he just volunteered that information?
An anonymous tip came in from someone else.
Right, but I feel okay. Yeah, I feel like you had to tell someone for them to be the tip. Or
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
he was the tip. I don't know.
No, I think the idea is someone else called and said, this guy did it. I know he did.
Ugh.
So they pull him in. He agreed to do a polygraph test with private investigators. And we know a polygraph test is not a reliable way it's not even permissible in court as evidence. So it's just kind of a barometer. But either way, regardless, he passed the test with flying colors. There was no evidence he had done anything whatsoever. And as he left, he just told the investigators, I wish you the best of luck. I really do. It just seemed like he really did have nothing to do with this. So the next lead was a local biker gang.
Ooh,
Speaking
okay.
of which, rumors came out that Lauren perhaps owed money to a drug dealer, but according to all of Lauren's phone records, and this private investigator went through like all her phone records, and she had never called or received anything from numbers linked to any local dealers. So that also seemed to be kind of a dead end, just a rumor. And this is at the point where private investigators start to believe that locals are calling in tips on each other just to like get other people in trouble. Like if they have
like the witch trials or something.
Yes, like just pointing fingers for like to get if they have a grudge against someone. For example, this like biker gang guy, someone called in to accuse him, and then private investigators were like, "We're pretty sure it's just like his rival gang or whatever that's calling in and saying he did it to try and get him in trouble.
That's such, by the way, what a messy biker gang. Like, getting the police
Trauma.
involved, the whole thing is that you don't get the police
right?
involved.
Like, Jesus Christ.
What are you, new here? Oh my
Yeah, and
God.
that apparently is what they thought people were doing. Like the same with calling in tips on ex-convicts and former felons, things like that. People were just calling random tips on each other that didn't seem to lead anywhere. And so their theory was, I think people are just trying to get their grudges out, like trying to get revenge on people they don't like. And so it was just causing trouble. It was such a mess. Meanwhile, every time a tip comes in, there's a sense of hope for the family, and then it just immediately vanishes. So it's just heartbreaking. Meanwhile, Lauren's parents felt that police could have done more in early efforts to find Lauren. Apparently, police didn't release any of the surveillance footage of Lauren's movements on the night she vanished. And this is odd because in other cases where missing persons were recovered, police immediately released all images and footage of the victims right away, and that often leads to answers pretty quickly. But police, for whatever reason, held back all the footage and the photos, did not release any of it, and just maintained they have their reasons, and that's that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no explanation. And 5 years after their daughter disappeared, Lauren's parents still had not been allowed to see any of the footage. Like, they don't even show her family the footage. They just retained it and then let the case go cold, which is honestly kind of infuriating. Finally, an anonymous tip came in that Lauren's story was far simpler than anyone might have guessed. And the story went that Lauren simply overdosed at a party that night. The people with her were afraid they'd get in trouble for her accidental death, so they moved her body, dropped it into the Ohio River, and that was that. So the tipper who called in claimed that a man named Corey, a different Corey, but a man named Corey who was currently serving prison time and was a former IU student, had told him this story. And the reason this Corey was in prison when this tip came in is because apparently he had been going through a lot of like alcohol and drug use during college as a student. And then one day he walked outside. He kind of like, I don't know if snapped is the right word, but he walked outside totally nude with a gun and started firing it just in the streets in the middle of the day.
So he was intoxicated.
He was really fucked up, and I think it was drugs, and he ended up going to prison for like 20 some years for that.
Wow.
And so that's why he was in prison. But so this other inmate said, hey, this guy Corey told me a story of what happened to Lauren. Like, he knew what happened. So they go question him, but of course Corey denies all of it, says he never said anything at all. But when they asked the tipper, the anonymous tipper, like, can you tell us what happened? And when he was interviewed on Dateline, they hid his identity so that you couldn't actually see who he was. But the tipper basically said they were in the rec room or whatever in prison and playing cards, and Lauren's face came up on the TV, and this guy Corey said, oh, I know what happened to her. A group of people were hanging out and she overdosed, and they panicked and threw her in the river. And so that was the story that that was the simplest but like potentially true tip they've gotten so far.
And is there any way people can go looking in the river, or was it just so many years at that point?
I don't. That's what I would think is like maybe it's just been so long that like at this point, if she hasn't been washed up, that like it would be a tough search.
Yeah.
I know I was just watching a documentary about the Murdoch murders and in South Carolina, and her body washed up 5 miles down the river, and that was only I think a few weeks or months later. So I can't imagine like
she could be anywhere.
After so many years, it's hard to say. But also,
why would he admit? I feel like if you kept it quiet that long, like why would you admit it?
I imagine it was just like bullshitting and
I guess
like just shooting the shit, and you let your guard down and you just say something, and then regret it. I'm not sure. So, I mean, and again, it could just be this anonymous tipper just trying to get this guy in more trouble. Who knows?
Right.
Or he could have, sometimes you see these cases where people in jail just make up lies and say, oh, I killed that person just for clout,
The cred. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's hard to say like how true that actually is. But there's something to be said for like the simplest solution, is
Yeah.
sometimes the way that it is. So, even if the tipper didn't really know the true story, police and even Lauren's family think it's definitely a possibility, especially with her heart condition. That her mom said, perhaps it was a terrible accident that happened and we can deal with that. What we can't deal with is what we don't know. So they're like, even
Yeah.
if that is what happened, like, please tell us so we can, close this chapter.
Yeah.
So it's just heartbreaking. There really haven't been many answers. To this day, Lauren's mother still updates the Facebook page. The Facebook page is called Official Lauren Spierer Updates from Her Family. And this is where she shares articles, memories of Lauren, and even responds to leads from TikToks and other social media angles. In 2020, she wrote prose about trying to go through Lauren's things, which had me tearing up earlier. So let's hope I can get through it. It says, today is the day. I think I can start going through Lauren's things. It's over 8 years. I go into her room. There are all the boxes, standing at attention as if soldiers guarding her memories. And so it's
Wow.
just so chilling and heartbreaking. On Lauren's birthday this year, 2023, January 17th, her mom wrote, you are always in my thoughts and in my heart. Maybe next year will be different. Maybe next year justice will walk hand in hand with you in place of evil. I celebrate you today, Lauren, as best as I can. Know that Dad, Rebecca, and I love you more than words can say. You are missed. All my love always, Mom.
Oh my
So
God.
Lauren's family, hopes that they can keep Lauren's name out there and people will remember her and potentially someone will remember something or finally decide to come forward with any information they have. And so, if you do know anything at all, if you happen to have any sort of lead, even if it doesn't feel important, they urge you to let, you can always submit a tip anonymously. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Please, if anonymously at the very least, if you know something, say something.
Agreed.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well,
Anyway.
yeah. Anyway, fingers crossed for justice.
That's fucked up. So that is the story of Lauren Spierer. And, it's just terrible because there's so many stories like this.
Yeah.
It just makes you scared. At least as someone with a child now, I'm like, how will I ever remain calm ever? I don't know.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons having a kid terrifies me is because I know I would just become my mother and tie a leash to my child and never let them leave me. So
I know there's like such a push and pull of like, go out in the world, be independent. And then you think of something like this where, they go off to college and you're just so happy they're in like a isolated college community
in the Midwest.
In the Midwest with like-minded people. And it's like, you just don't think that's where something could go so horribly wrong.
It just becomes really scary when everything feels like a false sense of reality or like a false sense of security.
Yeah, that's part of it. And like to think back to, and there was all that kind of media portrayal of her being a party girl and all that. But thinking back on the dumb shit I did, so much dumb shit that like was so dangerous. And at the time I just felt invincible,
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I feel like in her case, it was just like everyone does dumb shit and sometimes one person ends up getting hurt because of it, or one person doesn't luck out, even though there's a sea of people who have done the same thing. Like
exactly.
I think the scary thing about her story is that she didn't do anything everyone I know wouldn't have done. Like
exactly.
I mean, it could have been any of us. It was just dumb fucking luck that it would, unfortunately it was her.
Yep. Precisely. So it really makes you, I don't know, sends a chill down the spine, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just really, really hope that this gets solved, sometime soon.
And with that, we've now hit a 2-hour episode, over 2 hours. I don't know if we do that all that often, but I
think-
noticed
I
it this time.
I think we do relatively often. I did feel like this was going to be a short story, which is usually when our episodes go the longest. Because in my brain, it feels like it's going to be short.
The second commentary is welcomed.
Yes,
it's always bad.
we opened that Pandora's box and
we did spend the first
oopsie.
20 minutes talking about our dreams. So
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I'm looking
Well-
through some of our podcast episodes, and yeah, this one's definitely a doozy. This was pretty long.
Well, it was
well.
fun to catch up. We have our after chat. We also have to do. We actually have 2 after chats.
Yes, we do. Lots
Okay.
of chat.
All right. Well, then I guess we'll get to it. But if you are a member of Patreon, please go listen to our after chat. Also, we're still on tour. Please go get your tickets. If you are in the Vegas area, where I think when this comes out, we'll have already done our Carolina episodes or our Carolina shows.
Dun dun dun.
But yeah, if we're in a city near you, please come hang out with us. And I guess that's it.
That's it.
And
That's
why
we.
drink.